Welcome to a very special live episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, September 5th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Western Michigan game in 2 days, the game against Michigan in 86 days. Just got a chance to talk to Ryan Day and a whole mess of Ohio State, but I'm not going to try it. Come on, there were a million guys. We got a chance to talk to a whole lot of guys. We got a chance to talk to specialists we haven't talked to, I think, all year. We had a chance to talk to Brandon Inniss, Carnell Tate, a whole bunch of guys. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about today, but joined by Tony Gerdeman at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, I guess the thing that everyone is going to be most interested in is, so what's the update on Donovan Jackson and Cody Simon?
Yeah, Ryan Day said that they both practiced today, but they are still day-to-day. So,
aren't we all?
Yes. Practicing how much, who knows, but the fact that they practiced is encouraging. I still don't think they necessarily – I know they don't need to play.
Correct.
But it is interesting that he didn't just say nothing.
Right. He said something. I don't know that materially moves the needle for me on the likelihood that one or both of them play on Saturday. But
the day-to-day always trumps it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a situation where you've got a game where they're favored by, 38 points, something like that. Mm-hmm. And after that, you get a week off. So by not playing this weekend, you have another week off and then another week off after that. And then you have a week where you could play Marshall and sort of get ramped up a little bit. And then a week where you play Michigan State and you get ramped up a little more after that. And then it sort of starts to get real in October. It would make a lot of sense to me if they're not 100% sure on either of those guys. And if they're day-to-day, it sounds like you're not 100% sure. It feels like there's a pretty compelling argument to just sit this one out, take another week off next week, and then come back and play against the Thundering Herd.
Yeah, because the guys that are playing in place of those guys can still use all of those snaps. They can. This is a time where they can get some help from playing, getting that experience that might come into play later on down the season. So I think there's as many positives as you need to hold them out again if you would like.
Yeah, so that's kind of the immediate interest angle to the interviews tonight. I was not over there talking to Ryan Day. I was talking to Jaden Fielding instead. So what else did Ryan Day have to say?
Well, he was asked about some of the people that we've talked to tonight, including like Brandon Inniss and the importance of that punt return role. And I asked him, what kind of responsibility is that? And he's like, we tell anybody with the ball in your hands, you have the team in your hands. And so it's a huge responsibility, especially that position as the punt returner, where you have so many decisions to make, whether to catch it, whether to let it go, when to catch it, where to catch it, how to catch it. You've got your eyes up talking to Brandon Inniss about where your eyes are, where the ball is. He's like, it depends on where the ball is, and you're just trying to see if somebody's coming out of the corner of your eye. But that responsibility, it's not something they do lightly. Mecca Abuka did it last year, and Jaden Ballard as well, but they don't hand that off lightly. They take it very seriously because he saved them 3 first downs on one of the ones that was going to roll, gained them like 3 first downs on another from 30-yard returns. So that's a lot of hidden yardage that they are putting in his hands. He's the 4th receiver, probably expected to be one of the top 3 guys this year. But having that role, it's like we've talked about with the Mecca Abuka last week. When he was a true freshman, he didn't view himself as a wide receiver. He viewed himself as the team's kick returner. And while Brandon Inniss definitely views himself as still a receiver, he also knows that he is the team's kick returner, or the punt returner.
Well, and being the punt returner has kind of a different vibe to it this year, where it's not just, hey, there's a special teams coach. The Ohio State assistance coaches are all, it's Rob Keyes, it's Gunnar Daniel, who are the special teams guys, with that in their title. But James Laurinaitis is helping with special teams in some of the units, and Brian Hartline is helping with special teams in some of the units. And it sounded like Brandon Inniss, when I walked over, was talking about having Brian Hartline there, your position coach there, kind of makes it more important that you're really doing a good job, because they've talked for years about wide receivers being gunners on punt and earning their spot in the wide receiver rotation by doing an excellent job with being a gunner on a punt return. I would assume being a punt returner is probably much the same.
Yeah, and I was trying to think back. Brian Hartline had a punt return touchdown in 07 or 08. Maybe, he played 06, 07, and 08. He had a punt return touchdown one of those years, and I was just wondering how many other guys between him and now, because you had Chris Fields, you had Corey Brown, Jalen Marshall.
I'm running out of names.
So there have not been a lot of guys between.
Yeah, unless you're counting blocked punt returns.
No,
I think you're running out of names.
So yeah, you are running out of names between then and now. But as we've said, it sure seems like there's going to be one this season, and they absolutely believe there will be. Last year they had 75 total punt return yards. On Saturday he had 60 by himself. So good start.
It feels like that's a positive trend for the punt return unit. It was very interesting to talk to the special teams guys tonight because you get a chance to talk to Joe McGuire, which I'm extremely jealous. I got a chance to talk to Jaden Fielding, who was also very interesting. I always love talking to specialists because we get to talk to them like once or twice a year. So there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of, people don't necessarily can't necessarily relate to. I'm trying to block a 250 pound guy ahead of me who can run 21 miles an hour. They can relate to trying to kick a football. Everyone's trying to kick a football at some point. So it's like, oh, I know. We kickers,
yes,
you and I,
correct.
We speak the same language. But Jaden Fielding was talking about how different things are in this year in terms of just the focus and the detail with the special teams unit, which is strange to say when you're going from having a dedicated special teams coach to having a bunch of people doing it. Now, there are more people doing it. It's more sets of eyes, which is probably beneficial in a way. But I just thought that was very interesting that was an area where they had a guy who was supposed to be just working on that last year, and it feels like there's been a material upgrade that's already sort of showing up on the field this year.
Yeah, but kickers and punters always just have their own people as well. That's not always the special teams coordinator guy, but it is interesting that you have. Even Ryan Day said the return was better this week for whatever reason after the game, and it's like I think there are many.
Don't
reasons.
You love subtext?
There are many reasons, but also there are more eyes, like you said. But that's every position as well because of the new rules, which is good. So, figure more eyes, more focused, more opportunities to help guys get better, and with all of these position coaches wanting to see, you also want to see your guys do well. So I think there's a lot of incentive for that to be something that they can do now because it hasn't felt like they're interested in making that a weapon. It's just the mechanism to get the ball back in the past.
Yeah, it's been like a vestigial tail or something on this team for a few years. It has felt like, and this year it's feeling like it's much more of the third leg of the team, the third piece of the offense, defense, special team sort of triumvirate there. Jaden Fielding talked also about, we will get to stuff other than specialists, and don't worry, we'll get to the Australian specialist in a minute, but we have to finish up with the Texan specialist, Jaden Fielding. He was asked about how they simulated, simulating the pressure that you feel kicking in a game and the fact that you might be asked to go out with 2 seconds left on the clock and kick a 50-yarder with the wind blowing and all that kind of stuff. How do you simulate that pressure during practice? And he said there were I think 5 practices this year where he had to go out there and hit 5 field goals in a row, or the team had to run at the end of practice. So, oh boy, do you not want to be the guy that makes everyone run in the August heat in Columbus? And he said they had to run once, but 4 out of 5. And, it sounds like, boy, that is a great way to feel as close to in-game pressure as you possibly can.
And also hate and angst and anger from the people around you. If you miss a big kick, it's a way to prepare for that as well. Things aren't going to go great for you if you miss this kick.
The only thing that you can't simulate is I didn't see any teammates tweeting at him about how he's a bum on whatever day it was that he missed. So not the full missing a field goal experience, but probably pretty much as close as you can get without that.
Maybe you got some texts.
Maybe. Let's move on to the other piece of the punting, and we'll transition with this. I asked him, when they transition from Nick McLarty to Joe McGuire as a starting punter, does that change the holder? Is the starting punter always the holder? Because it has always been the holder in the past. And in my head, this was if you're on a road game, you might not take a backup punter in terms of your travel squad, so that the starting punter has to be. And he said, no, not necessarily. John Froman and Joe McGuire, and he worked a ton this offseason. So we have seen other guys holding, but it feels like Joe McGuire was probably going to be the holder regardless of whether he was a starting punter or not. That was my question tonight. That was like, this is probably only interesting to me, but I would like the answer to this. So,
well, and somebody's going to ask. Maybe only one person.
As long as that person is me. I don't know that anyone else cares, but there we go. It was just it. So there you go. That was the holder question of the day. Now, Tony, let's talk Australia.
Well, and unfortunately, nobody asked Joe McGuire about holding. So kind of kicking myself now about that one.
Or no, I'm not going to say that. No.
So he was talking about how a week and a half ago it was Nick McLarty. But that never changed anything that was going on because they were neck and neck throughout the entire thing. So he knew there was still time. They both went at it, and he came out on top this week, he said. But it's, you can't. I mean, Nick McLarty is an example. Like, you can't let yourself have a bad week, or even a bad couple of days, and that goes for anybody on this team because the position battles are always ongoing in certain spots. So that he was. Do you know how long he's been punting, Tom? He's a Pro Kick Australia guy.
Yes. So, and he's been on the Ohio State team for a couple of years.
Right.
So I'm going to say 3 years.
That's right. He's been punting for about 3 years. Said he had to put on about 45 pounds to become an American college football player.
You probably could have stopped that sentence. Yeah. So,
he said 20 kilos. He's like, what's that, about 45 pounds? Oh, yeah. Speak American here. So, what's your, what do you want to average as a punter? He's like, as far as possible, with as little return as possible. Good answer there. But,
is that in yards or meters?
Oh, we didn't get into that one. But he did say the place he plays back home, and he gave us some name, it's sponsored by something or other, is 100,000. But it's a 50-50 crowd. Oh, so this is the first time he's gotten to play in just like 98-2 crowd. So that was fun for him. But I thought he did well there and also out on the field this past week. And that getting that first game in, I think, only helps you in this ongoing competition for the job.
It does. It's going to be very interesting to see how that progresses. Is it just him every week, or is it potentially change? Because if it was that close during fall camp, you'd think potentially it might change. Having 3 guys, I mean, it's a lot of pressure, and so that's, in some ways, you could think that's not good, but it's not just Nick McLarty and him. They have Anthony Veneri from the University of Buffalo, SUNY Buffalo, known as the Buffalo Bulls for athletic purposes. He is here as well. He was in the mix for that punting job as well. Having 3 guys, if someone gets hurt, that's great to have quality depth in terms of guys who have done this before, but also just in terms of keeping, you don't want complacency. This has been a big point of emphasis is don't get complacent. Don't look at Western Michigan and go, haha, we're going to beat them. You have to really be focused every week, and having that kind of a competition probably keeps you looking over your shoulder a little bit and keeps you from getting a little complacent.
Well, and he was also asked, you were the one punter that returned, and they went in and brought in 2 guys to try to take the job from you. And he's like, yeah, but I was like the only guy here, so yeah, you can't just go with one punter. So that's kind of understandable. And then it's like, I've been here. I know all of this. I've been to the games. I've been on the sideline. I'm sure he felt like he was the favorite, and he responded throughout. Even when told that it's somebody else's job, he's like, I don't think it is. Here, hold my Fosters.
Respectfully disagree. Yes, that's that definitely gonna be interesting to watch that one play out, because I'm sure you're going to see multiple guys punting over the course of the season, whether that's just in the fourth quarter of blowouts or otherwise. But yeah, that'll be interesting to watch that season play out. I think everyone had psyched themselves up for the really tall Australian, but the other Australian seems to be doing a perfectly fine job so far.
Yeah, and I do think they want to get Nick out there, and just because he hasn't done it yet, so you want to be able to, like Anthony Veneri has done it, so you at least have that. You want to get Nick out there so that he can just experience it, and the first time he's doing it isn't a at Oregon, whatever, because of an injury.
Right. Yeah. You want to get those first game nerves out in the fourth quarter against Western Michigan or Marshall or whoever.
Don't punt against Western Michigan.
Well, that's not up to me, Tony. That's not up to me. Thinking through some of the other guys we got a chance to talk to, I got a chance to talk to Tyleek Williams. I asked him about Edric Houston, just because Edric Houston just played a little bit, but already had 2 really impactful plays. Gabe Powers, got a chance to talk to Gabe Powers as well, and one of the plays that Edric Houston made was deflecting a pass into Gabe Powers' hands for the pick 6. And it feels like everyone is sort of recognizing that it's not there yet, but it's going to get there with Edric Houston. He's already making impactful plays on the field. He's only been on campus since January. So this is pretty early for someone to be on the field and making those kind of plays. So definitely seeing some excitement from there. Gabe Powers did. Someone said he got a hand on the ball, and Gabe Powers struck me. I think it actually hit him in the helmet on the. I
thought it was a shoulder on the replay, but
yeah, it got him somewhere. But yeah, it was that's definitely someone that you're going to want to just. You could, if you were so inclined, you could invest in a jersey and probably feel pretty good about it for the coming next 2 seasons or so.
96, not a great looking jersey. I would assume that number is going to change at some point. So
that's true.
Be careful with that.
That's true. He's someone who would look really good in an 11. Like
perfect. There you go.
If they don't give, maybe give Cade McDonald 1 and then give him the 11.
Talking to JT Tuimoloau, he was also asked about Edric Houston, and the question was framed something to the effect of, JT, Tyleek says that Edric has really long arms, and JT looks over at Tyleek Williams like, you talking about people's arm lengths over there? And Tyleek was like, I was asked. They asked me about it, so I talked about it. But he did say, JT said that he had to calm Edric Houston down before the game because he was getting very ramped up for his first game as a Buckeye, which is completely understandable. And they got him calmed down, and he played well in the fourth quarter, and look what happened.
Gabe Powers was also asked about that pick 6. Shockingly, Tony, it was the first thing he was asked about after having an interception.
That whole thing?
That was days ago. I don't want to talk about that. He was perfectly willing to talk about that, surprisingly. He said that as he was running in, you saw him looking up. In the pictures that I have, you can see his eyes looking up. What are you looking at that point? He said, well, I was looking at the scoreboard because I wanted to make sure, look at the video board to make sure he wasn't going to get caught from behind. He played on offense in high school as well up in Marysville. And, so he's comfortable, running with the ball.
It was a nice catch.
But it was a nice catch, a little juggle, brought it down, caught it on the run, had nice momentum, was not anywhere getting close to getting tackled, but yes, that was an old Zeke Elliott move, watching the scoreboard and just making sure there's no one pulling up behind you. You do not have rearview mirrors as a football player. Anything else from JT Tuimoloau?
No, all good. They just want to remain as aggressive as possible, and the key to doing that is just doing everything consistently. Just every single play, doing it. Don't take any plays off. All of the coach speak that they hammer into them: technique, effort, consistency. All those things. That's what they want to do again this week. Surprise.
All right. I think we've hit everyone who was at my table. Do you have anyone else that we need to
I was talked to Will Kazmarek a little bit, and people are, of course, asking, do you think they set up this non-conference schedule for you? Because you got 2 MAC teams, and he's coming from Ohio. He's like, no, I don't think they did. So got to talk to him. I asked him, hey, you ran a jet sweep in a bowl game last year. Have you talked to Chip about that? He is not. He's I think Chip has enough, enough options.
The skill talent at Ohio State may be slightly better. No disrespect to our friends in Athens, but
hey, Sam Wiggles was there.
Yeah,
but he was excited about the fact that him and Jelani Thurman and G. Scott all played roughly the same number of snaps, and he was asked, is that okay? He's like, that's fantastic because we're all fresh. We're all able to do different things, different packages. So I think they all feel like they're part of the team. And Ryan Day said that they're going to start getting more targets. So that's not a concern. I did go back and look to see how many times last year the tight ends only had 1 target. And I think it was like maybe 1 game last year where they only had 1 target, but mostly like they generally have more than that because Cade Stewart generally caught the ball. But you would we would expect to see more of them being targeted. Lord knows there's enough of them.
Yeah, there are plenty of tight ends, and with the wide receiver depth being what it is, you get beyond the top 4 or so at wide receiver, and then it gets a little more, they've got guys. You saw Bryson Rogers with the reception, and I'm sure Mylan Graham is going to get worked in there at some point, and Kojo Antwi and all those guys, Jaden Ballard. But there's not 6 guys who they feel are starting caliber wide receivers this year, and they've got more than one tight end, and you're going to see some 12 personnel. So, yeah, there are definitely going to be opportunities for the tight ends in the passing game. And, Tony, why wouldn't there be? You know what year it is.
It is the year of the tight end. It is 2024.
It is. I just checked. If you have not hit the thumbs up button, please do that. Well, if you're watching us live, that helps the magical YouTube algorithm. If you have questions for us, please leave them in the chat, and Kevin will punch those up for you. Kevin, do we have questions?
We do. Ryan Dawes. I keep confusing McGuire and McClarty.
Okay, so how do you keep Joe McGuire and Nick McClarty straight? If you watch them with their helmets off, Joe McGuire has like smooth flowing hair. Nick McClarty kind of has curly hair. Nick McClarty is also about probably 6 inches taller, I'm going to say, than Joe McGuire. Mm-hmm. So, both Australians, therefore both outstanding at punting. But that's how you can, if you see them on the field or out of uniform, that is how you can tell them apart.
McClarty, McLarger.
Smart. Yes. That's up there with my
no, it's better.
My Noah Rogers, Bryson Rogers thing from last year, which sadly no longer have to keep those 2 names straight.
No longer have to keep those 2 names.
No longer, yes.
All right. The football extraordinaire. Do you think Jackson and Simon will be back for the Marshall game?
So do we think Donovan Jackson and Cody Simon will be back for the Marshall game? Right now, if you are to take Ryan Day at his word, those both guys are day to day. That game is 2 weeks away. I think there is a very compelling reason to, if a guy is not 100% right now, sit him this weekend. You got the week off next. If you don't re-aggravate it at that point, if they're day to day now, they should certainly be ready to go 2 weeks from now. So I would be fairly surprised if we saw both of them this weekend. You might see one, but I would be fairly surprised if we saw both of them this weekend. I would be fairly surprised if we didn't see both of them for the Marshall game.
Yeah, I think you put them both out there. That way they're not opening their season in the Big Ten on the road at Michigan State. Not that we should be concerned about Michigan State, but still you would like a run up to that.
Yeah, you'd like a nice smooth ramp up of Marshall and then Michigan State and then Iowa and then Oregon. That would, that gives you a nice smooth ramp up. If you just start at Michigan State, then you're on the road. And, I don't know that I think Michigan State is clearly the second best team in the state of Michigan this year. We'll see. You don't want to overreact to week 1, but week 1 was not outstanding in East Lansing. So we'll see how that season kind of continues to play out. I think Jonathan Smith is going to have that team in a pretty good spot in a few years. I really like him as a coach. I just don't know if year 1 is going to be great.
Yep.
All right, next one. Wrigley Puppy Frog. Better off-season question. Which team is better, Ohio State or the first team All-MAC?
So which team is better, Ohio State or the first team All-MAC? I mean, I have not looked at the first team All-MAC from last year particularly closely, but I'm going to guess that no more than a handful of those guys are going to get drafted in the NFL, and none of them are going to get drafted in the first round. So I think, to me, that's probably a pretty clear indication that just in terms of pure talent, size, speed, all of this sort of measurables, it's pretty clear. Ohio State's probably favored by at least a couple touchdowns against the first team All-MAC, assuming the first team All-MAC team has a full spring and a full fall camp. And I mean, you're sort of making things up right now, but I don't think even that game is a particularly close nail biter.
No, and Western Michigan's running back is all MAC, so you'll get a good look at what that is this week. And
one thing with the MAC is the MAC talent level has really been hit by the transfer portal. I mean, Will Kazmarek is no longer appearing in games for the Ohio Bobcats because he's up in Columbus. Nathan Rourke is no longer appearing in games for the Ohio Bobcats because he's the starting quarterback in Indiana. I mean, you've got a lot of talent drain coming out of the MAC, and that's sort of a unavoidable byproduct of this. The talent does go the other way. You mentioned Sam Luke-Lewis earlier. The talent can go the other way, but this has, I think, been a net talent drain on some of the lower level conferences like the MAC.
For sure.
little bit of news from myself. Walk-on linebacker Joey Velasquez loses his black stripe.
All right, so walk-on linebacker Joey Velasquez loses his black stripe. He's someone who has been closer to the rotation than you might have expected. It felt like at times during fall camp. I don't think did he play it all on Saturday on
I don't
defense?
know that he
I don't
did.
think that he did, but he's someone who obviously interesting story there. He was going to come to Ohio State as a baseball player, got a football offer from Michigan, went to Michigan to play football for a few years, won a national title, then came back to Ohio State to play football. It is a transition that not everyone, I think, would be able to make, but he's someone who you're not going to see him starting this year, but you could see him in some kind of contributing role on special teams or something like that.
And he also was part of the latest EA college football update. He went and put his name in and got his $500 or whatever. So good for him.
Salvatore, how quickly do we see that tunnel screen to JJ?
It's funny. We were joking about that right before we went live that you could just come right back with it because it sure as heck looked like it was going to work last week. And now it's on film, so I guess people are going to be looking for it to a certain degree. But
pump and go.
Yeah, well, you can iterate off of it. But even if it doesn't go 60 yards this time, do it again, run it again. Why not? He might just be able to out-athlete the guys in the Western Michigan secondary. I don't think there's a bad way to get him the ball in space and just say, see where the field turns red back down there? Take it there.
We joke about the bold predictions with him, and they're going to get outlandish. I can't even set a touchdown line at 0.5.
No, over.
You have to be at 1.5 before you even start thinking about it.
Yeah, and he's so far gone over.
And why would you go under?
He's so far gone over that in 100% of the games in his career. So
he's ridiculous. In
Last
a good
one
way.
I have started at this point, Kyle Warner. Score prediction for this game.
Oh boy, score prediction for the Western Michigan game. I know it's a 38-point line. I have given this absolutely no thought. Have you sent in a score prediction yet?
I've not sent my score prediction in yet, but I've got it written down. And
okay.
I'm just looking for
well,
it.
I will give you one, and I'm not going to 100% commit to it because I've really given this no thought so far. But I'll go with Ohio State 42, Western Michigan 6.
I went 52 again, and I believe I went 13. So let me see here. Yeah, 52-13 is what I went with. I'm just trying to make sure. I know I went 50. I'm sticking with 52 until they don't get it.
Okay.
So that feels like it's pretty smart. 52-10. So
52-10. All right.
Boom, blowout.
Not a big believer in the Ohio State defense.
No, this is a pick six.
Not a big believer in the Ohio State offense.
I am not.
49-10.
49-10.
Kevin says 49-10. I don't recall.
Not a big believer in Jaden Fielding.
Anything else? Or we?
I think we are good. We do have Market X saying he doesn't think Ohio State covers.
Market X not thinking Ohio State covers, and I think it is 38. So it's that is a reasonable thing because this is a season where you've seen a lot of teams kind of strangle the life out of the clock to a certain degree. It would not surprise me if Western Michigan tried to do that at times against Ohio State. They were surprisingly good against Wisconsin last week. So this is definitely going to be a step up in competition. You're not going from Akron to Alabama, but you're going from you're going from bottom of the MAC to at least middle of the MAC, it's a step forward.
Yeah, and again, as we've said, it's good for Ohio State to see Western Michigan give Wisconsin a game because there is such respect for Wisconsin in this building, and you've also got Will Kazmarek, preaching the good news of the MAC, like, hey, we got players there, and he's evidence of that.
All right, so we will be there on Saturday night for the first primetime game of the season for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Very likely not the last, but we will be there in the Horseshoe Saturday night for the Buckeyes and the Broncos. Tony, Kevin, and I will be there. I have full coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com and, of course, at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle as well. Lots of pregame coverage, lots of postgame coverage. those primetime post-game shows always get real lively, which is always fun. So we are looking forward to that. We hope you can join us there. We also hope you can join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there to make you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.